All right, the next topic I want to talk about, still in the creditors, is invoice authorisation. This is our first sort of waltz into the web side of things. We're going to look at using a mobile device in this process. This slide goes for a little bit of time because we cover about 4 or 5 principles in this one video. The first thing I want to talk about is that when we set up a company, a division, a branch in the Accrivia system, we can have a default as an authoriser for invoices. We can also have a secondary and an amount. So you might have a system where anything above $50,000 needs to go through the financial controller's approval before we actually want to see it paid. That can be done simply by stipulating that amount and stipulating that person in there, and that's at a system level. The second defaulting that's in play is at a jobs level. So if you're running our job system, you might have a site supervisor who's responsible essentially for all the goods that are arriving on site, for all the work that's done, and it's appropriate that they're the best person to say, yes, that's the stock that arrived, yes, we're happy, everything's in order. So once again, at a job level, we can stipulate who the site manager might be, the job supervisor, and they now are the defaulter anytime that job comes into play. And the third default is in the creditor system itself. So a creditor might also have someone that's responsible for approving any invoices before they're paid. In terms of priorities, the job will override the creditor and the creditor will override the system. So there is a bit of a waterfall in terms of the way we'll approach who the default is for the approval process. Okay. So we've now set up our 3 defaults at both a job, a system and a supplier level. Let's pick up the invoicing screen, one that you'll be familiar with. And we're going to run through, I think, this 4 times. I actually want enough data in the system to go through the approval process on quite a few examples. The first one we do is a job-based purchase order. So we've got a job number here. And therefore, the default approver that's come up for this actual invoice for this supplier is in fact associated with the job itself. We can associate any images, JPEGs, most of the time it's PDFs. We can associate any documentation attachments to that invoice. So now that invoice has been saved, we have all the financial information, but we've also got an image associated as well. We're going to run that process 3 more times, and I'm just going to draw out a different aspect of what we're putting in with each one. This is more of a sort of clean, standard sort of boring scenario where we've got a telephone bill. We're going to load the file in for that one, the image. That was a PNG file, so that wasn't JPEG, that's fine. The next one is for Sparky Services. They do some electrical work. And we haven't overridden the defaults, but we could. And then the last one we want to do is an invoice that's actually over 3 separate branches. And in this situation, it's actually going to require 3 sets of approval before the whole invoice is actually approved for payment. So we've got the ability to say, it's not about a single branch. This might be someone who does maintenance work. You can see here it's in red initially because it hasn't actually got a default set up against that branch. And here we've done an override. We've chosen someone different for the first of the branches. So as many branches as we involve here, companies, stores, call it what you will, as many as we involve here, we're going to have that actually activate up in the grid here. It's not going to let you post until it's all the information's in there. So here is an invoice that's now been allocated out to 3 different set of approvers. There is a screen in Accrivia for the invoice authorisation process. So if that's your preferred method, you can log in, you can go into this screen, you can bring up the invoices that are awaiting your approval as a user. You could also bring up everything for a given branch if you've got permissions for that, other branches. And we can authorise these or we can reject them, we can put comments in, we can view the images that go with it. All the comments that are actually running, both by the system and the operators, are all being captured on everything we do. So that exists already. But what we want to really sort of draw out today is the first of our mobile devices and the interaction with the users or the people in the organisation who aren't in the office and haven't got an Accrivia login. So let's log in. We've already set up that this person has authority, has access to their authorisation of invoices. They log in on their phone. Tablets is really good for this one as well. You get a nice wide screen. You can see instantly they've got 3 invoices awaiting approval. And they could be getting emails if you see fit to say, you guys have got 5 invoices, they're waiting, they're 7 days old now, get onto it. So here's our 3 invoices that we posted a moment ago and we flagged against this operator. And we're going to go through each of these one at a time. We can see the breakdown of stock amounts. It's going to wrap here because it's on a narrow band device. Our accept and reject. We've also got any images associated when that was posted. So I can drill that down, I can resize it. All the sort of stuff you're normally used to in terms of your mobile devices and the way images are supported. And on this occasion, we're going to authorise this. We're happy, but we want to add a comment back to the administration guys to let them know something. You do not have to add comments when you accept, but you must add comments if you reject and tell us why you've rejected it. So we're going to cancel the back order. Now, one of the areas this has got some traction, certainly from the feedback we're getting already from the user base, for situations where you might have, and I'm going to use a specific brand, not like the ABC, I'm allowed to. Say you've got a KFC store, you've got an administration office, and you've got 10 stores spread out through Victoria or New South Wales, wherever it might be. You might have your store administrator, your store manager, responsible for approving certain invoices. They don't need an Accrivia login. They can just have their device, anything that we're waiting on their approval before we release for payment. You can see with the telephone one, the expense account that's been allocated is showing up. That one went through without a comment. And the last one, we're deliberately going to reject it. The reason we're going to reject it is not that the work wasn't done to completion nor that the price was in dispute, but because we're actually expecting additional documentation which hasn't shown up. So we want to send this back around the loop and collect some more information. So we're wanting to cite the compliance certificate before we actually say, yep, we're good to go. No invoices left, we're done in the terms of this user on this mobile device. The person who's responsible for that invoice that got rejected is the same person who entered it. We're going to go back to the source of the entry to chase up the additional information we need. And the second thing I want to introduce in this area, third, fourth, whatever, is a new menu that we've introduced into Accrivia, which is basically a reminder and a task alert system. We need to be able to communicate back with the operators because we're now using mobile devices. There's a lot of stuff flying around. So we've got this new screen that every time you log in, if you've got something to do, it's hitting you in the face. Now you can then pause. It's like Outlook, you can pause it or whatever. You can double click on it, right click on it. That will take you into the actual invoice in question. You can see the comments that have been posted as to why the authorisation was rejected. You can see our status up here. This is just the posting page. So at this point in time, we can still add more documentation into that invoice. Even though it's been posted, we can drag and drop, hook in another file, and we're going to reset the status and send it back to the same person it just came from. Could send it to someone else. They might be on leave for the day or 2 days or something. Someone else needs to be involved. Permissions can be set up. You can authorise other people's invoices on behalf of them, full audit trails, etc., if that's appropriate, depending on the permissions sort of hierarchy that's been established. So we've got the comment captured that we're sending it back for another round. Let's hook back into our mobile device. Actually, sorry, first we're going to dismiss that. These things are also interactive, so if that invoice had been approved through other means in the meantime, it would automatically disappear off our reminders because there'd be no further action to be taken. We don't see this as a replacement to Outlook, certainly not wanting to go there. It's more about the Accrivia internals, and I'm going to come to some areas with regards to quoting. Accountability, I suppose is the word I'd be looking for, that we're going to use that screen for other purposes also. Logging back in, got an invoice waiting. Got our images come through. We're happy. So I've kind of run through this in a jobs-based area, but clearly it relates to the jobs system. It can also relate to any action within your organisation where you want an approval process in place, and maybe it's just financials. Maybe everything's auto-approved up to a certain dollar limit, but anything over $70,000 has got to go through the appropriate people before you want to see it paid. All invoices that are awaiting approval will be on hold in the auto-pay and in the manual payment screen, clearly showing the status, who it's with, etc. Can't be overridden unless you've got appropriate authority to do so, supervisory type level. Once that's done, once the approval's done, automatically releases straight through to your auto-pay side of things.